We all know that first impressions matter. They matter a lot. And oftentimes, that first impression is delivered digitally. With us showing up so often via webcam, it is critical that our digital impression that we are giving off is a good one, that it's a good reflection of your personal leadership brand and a good reflection of your corporate brand. And the question to you is your digital impression a good one? This episode is dedicated to ensuring that your answer to that question is yes. Hi, I'm Karin Reed. I'm a 4-time author, Emmy Award-winning broadcast journalist, and communication expert on helping people to own the room, whether it be a physical one or a virtual one. Welcome to Speaker Dynamics. When I began my career as a TV journalist, I was very fortunate that my first place I ever worked was in a city that was adjacent to a place where my parents lived. And so they were able to watch their daughter appear on TV and do live news reports right from the very beginning of my career. So if you can imagine, I did my first TV news report. I was live on the scene somewhere. And afterwards, I gave my mom a call and I said, "So what did you think?" And she said, "Karin, your hair looked great." And I said, "Mom, no one cares about what my hair looked like." Boy, was I wrong, because I found this out very dramatically at my next station where I worked, where I decided one day to cut off my very long hair and make it very, very short. I cut it into a pixie cut. And I didn't think anything of it until I walked in and all of my colleagues said, "Oh, did you ask if you could do that?" I'm like, "No, I didn't. I just felt like cutting off my hair." But anyway, long story short, the night that I went on the air with my new hairdo, that station recorded the most phone calls from viewers they had ever recorded in a short period of time. And it was people who were weighing in on my new hairstyle, which seems ridiculous, but it's absolutely true. Thankfully, they were favorable, so that was good. But it made me realize that the focus of our audience might be a little bit different than what we expect our audience's focus to be. Yes, of course you need to have an excellent story to tell and good content to present, but how you show up and how you present it is also important. So today we're going to be talking about how you can improve your digital impression, or what I like to call elevate your personal production value whenever you are showing up virtually. So I'm going to talk you through a couple of top tips that I like to share with my clients, and hopefully you can apply them in your world. The first one involves something that's pretty basic, and that's just ensuring that your background is uncluttered and non-distracting. So you might think, okay, polishing your personal production value is all about vanity. It's not. What it is about is showing respect for the people who are on the other side of you, the people who are receiving your message. You want to make sure that they can receive it without distraction. And so that means making sure you have cleaned up whatever is appearing on the screen. So that means having your background be something that is professional, perhaps neutral, but also not having anything in the background that can potentially pull focus. So for example, if you have an amazing collection of bobblehead dolls, super cool, but you don't want people focusing on the bobblehead dolls and not focusing on the message that you are delivering. So sometimes people will hear that and will think, okay, I'm just going to sit in front of a blank wall, like right up in front of a blank wall. But when you do that, it's almost like you look like you're getting your passport photo taken. So instead, I suggest creating some depth to the shot, meaning that you have several feet between you and whatever is behind you. That'll be a much more attractive, appealing shot for your audience to consume. A lot of people like using the virtual backgrounds. I think virtual backgrounds are fabulous at covering up a wealth of chaos. However, be aware that if your virtual background is not layering cleanly, meaning you have like kind of watery edges, that can be just as distracting as if you have a pile of laundry behind you. So make sure that there is a good contrast between you and whatever is in your background. So the AI that is used to create the effect of a virtual background is good, but it's not perfect. And sometimes it can't tell where you end and the background begins. And that's when you see, for example, people's hair being eaten, or they put their fingers up and their fingers start to look all weird and are eaten up by the background. You want to have contrast between you and whatever's behind you, or else the virtual background can't figure out where you end and the background begins. So I had this happen with one of my clients who had beautiful gray hair, and her virtual background was just not playing nicely. Her hair kept on being eaten anytime she moved her head. And I said, do me a favor, just take that virtual background down for a second. I want to see what's behind you. And when she did, she revealed that she had a beautiful piece of art that was hanging on the wall behind her. And it was all in various shades of gray, which were close enough to the color of her hair that the AI used to create the virtual background thought that her hair was part of the work of art. So just consider having contrast behind you. So if you're like, for example, if you're blonde like I am, if I'm sitting in front of a white wall or anything that's a lighter color, I know I'm going to lose my hair. If I'm sitting in front of something that is, a dark wall, like a dark green or a blue, I know I will have no trouble using a virtual background because it has that contrast to it. The second thing I want to talk to you about is lighting. And lighting can make a huge difference in how you come across. Backlighting is bad. So if you have a window behind you, unless you have really strong light that's going on your face, you're going to end up looking like you're in silhouette. You're going to appear much darker in the frame than you want to. Because remember, you want people to be able to read your facial expressions. We convey so much of our message through our facial expressions. So you want people to be able to read them easily. So the key is lighting your face. And that can be as simple as, instead of having a window behind you, turning around and facing that window, taking in that natural light. It's usually filtered, usually pretty flattering, and it's easy to produce if it's during the day. Now, of course, there are situations where you don't have the opportunity to use Mother Nature to supply your light. So you have to use artificial lighting. And a word of caution here, don't just rely on overhead lighting solely, because the reason why is that you'll have a downward cast of light that will darken your eyes, and people will have a difficult time making good eye contact with you. And eye contact is the basis for trust and believability. So you want people to be able to see your eyes. So that means you want to have some sort of light that's at face level and pointing towards you. Now, one of the challenges I do see with this is you'll have people who wear glasses, and there is a dramatic reflection in the lenses that obscures their eyeballs completely. So a tip that you can apply is take two lights, one on either side of your webcam or on your laptop if you are using the webcam that's embedded in that, and put it on either side, raised up a little bit higher, and then pointing down. And that will allow the light to almost like get behind your lenses, and you won't be battling the reflection of the light directly in front of you in your lenses. Because if you can imagine, if you have a light in front of you, it's going to bounce off those lenses. So have it raised up, pointing down a little bit and to the side. I like to actually use kind of puck lights as opposed to the ubiquitous ring lights, because I feel like that actually gives you a better lighting effect than if you just use ring lights. So the other thing I want you to think about is your audio. And it's something that typically, if you're on a virtual call, you don't think about because we can't hear ourselves. But it is an incredibly important piece of your digital impression that you're giving across. Be aware that people are more tolerant of poor video quality than they are of poor audio quality. So if there is a place to invest your time and energy in improving, it would be in your audio. So there are a lot of different options that you have. Maybe you just like to use your laptop microphone. Maybe you have a microphone that's embedded into your webcam. Maybe you have one of those speakerphone pods. A lot of people use headsets. The key is not all audio options play nicely in every room. Your acoustics of your room itself will greatly impact your audio fidelity. So, for example, if you have a lot of hard surfaces in your space, hardwood floors, tile floors, high ceilings, windows without a lot of window treatments, that can create a really bouncy sound environment. And it can make you sound like you're talking in a tin can. So, for example, my laptop microphone does not work well in my environment, which is why I use a little lavalier lapel mic that you see here if you're watching on YouTube. This was inexpensive, but it does the trick really well, and it's a more condensed sound. So what I would suggest to you is consider the space that you're in and then check out what is going to work best. So your room, the way it's set up, is going to impact it. Another thing that's going to impact it is how much potential audio interruptions could occur in your space. So if you have pets that make noise unexpectedly. So say you have a dog that loves to bark at the delivery person, and you don't quite know when that's going to occur, or you have, young children who are going to be screaming at unexpected times. You probably want to use a headset because oftentimes it's noise canceling. It keeps the audio interruption out for your audience, but it also can help you to stay more focused on the call. The best bet, though, to find out what audio option is best for you is ask a colleague, a friend to hop on a call with you and toggle between the different audio options that you have available and ask them which sounds best, because you need them to be candid. You need to know how you're coming across. And I can't tell you how many times I've been on a call with a leader who has terrible audio and nobody's told them because they felt like they didn't want to embarrass them. Do let people know if their audio is poor, because it's going to impact their ability to communicate with you, and they'll want to know. So don't leave it to chance that they'll be in a workshop with me and I will be frank and honest with them that they need to improve their audio. Audio is a critical component of your digital impression, and you want to make sure you've attended to it. The other thing to consider is your camera position. And ideally, you want your camera to be in a position that is best for your viewer. What that means is you want your camera to be at eye level with your eyes. So you want to draw a line from your eyes to your camera that is parallel with the floor. And what that does is it makes it feel like you are looking directly into the eyes of your viewer. And that's the way you'd be talking to them pretty much face to face as well. So here are the things that I often see. I will see people use a laptop and they'll keep it down on their desk and they'll look like they're looking down on their conversation partner. Or maybe somebody's invested in an external webcam and they have an external monitor and it's big and they've perched it on the top of that monitor. And then they look like they're looking up, asking a parent for permission, and it undercuts their authority. So you want to have your camera at eye level. So how do you do that? Let me give you a couple of examples. If you're using the webcam that's embedded in your laptop, you likely are going to need to raise it up. So you can buy a fancy laptop stand. I have one, but you don't have to do it that way. You can use a stack of books. I've had people use their child's lunchbox. I've had people use their hamster cage. Nobody knows how you're raising up your laptop to get it to eye level. They just know that it's a good shot and it feels good to them to talk to you this way. If you have a webcam, an external webcam, rather than perching it on top of that big external monitor, consider getting a desktop tripod and screwing it in and then placing it in a position that makes sense relative to your monitor setup. So say, for example, you have two monitors and you have them, almost in like a V sort of shape, like a wide V. I would have my webcam on a desktop tripod between those two monitors, because what that does is it decreases the distance your eyes have to travel from your webcam to either screen. And that's the key, because, right, you want to make sure that you are making as much eye contact with the camera when you're speaking with impact as possible. But there might be times where you want to reference what's going on your slides. And so you want to be able to travel to that space easily without having to, go from perhaps the top of one monitor down to another monitor that's off to your left or wherever you have it placed. The other thing I often see happen is people will have the ceiling in their shot. How many ceiling fans have you seen whirring above people's heads? Super distracting, right? So what I would suggest to you is, if you are using, for example, a laptop with the webcam embedded, you want to square off the laptop. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, I'm going to show you with my hands, and I'll try to describe it for those who are listening. So imagine that your keyboard is, sitting on, your laptop stand or on your desk. And, maybe the screen is tilted slightly back and it's pointing almost up at the ceiling. You want to square it off, meaning you create a 90-degree angle so that the camera is pointed directly behind you. That way you take the ceiling out of your shot, you take the ceiling fan out of your shot, and it's not you looking down on people, it's rather you looking them directly in the eye. So now you have your camera in the proper placement at eye level. It's squared off with the wall behind you. What about how you place yourself in the screen? Well, you want to ensure that you don't cut off body parts. You don't want to cut off your chin. You don't want to cut off the top of your head. Instead, you want to sit squarely in the frame, meaning you have equal distance between your shoulders to the edges of the frame, and then a little bit of space between the top of your head and the top of the frame. So I like to use what I call the 3-finger test. So for those of you who are watching on YouTube, you can follow along with my actions. I'll describe it for those of you who are listening. Raise your hand as if you're doing a pledge, okay? Connect your pinky and your thumb. At this point, you have 3 fingers sticking up and you've got your pinky and your thumb connected. Take your temperature by taking those 3 fingers and holding them against your forehead, all right? And now put it on the top of your head. You want to have 3 fingers of space between the top of your head and the top of the frame. That's how much distance you should see. And why is this a good idea? Well, when we're talking to people face to face, we're taking in their nonverbals, their body language, from about this much space that is now apparent on the screen. You want to create that same canvas for your conversation partners to read when you are virtual. It'll give you a better opportunity to communicate in full. So we've talked about your background, we've talked about your lighting, we've talked about your audio, we've talked about your camera position. All of this is critical for you to ensure that your digital impression that you're giving across is a good one, because you want to make sure that it is a great reflection of your personal leadership brand and that you have presence in the virtual room. This is vacation season, and I know a lot of us are doing virtual calls from places that we typically don't do virtual calls from. And the thing is, the tips that I just suggested to you can be applied no matter where you are. One of the things that might be helpful for you is trying to figure out how to find the best lighting in your given space. Today's bonus content is focused on that. I have a video which is all about finding the light which is a technique used by video production professionals to figure out what is the best lighting in the space. I'm going to show you how to do it using your smartphone when you are in a location you normally would not be doing a virtual call from. So do check that out if you're interested by going to speakerdynamics.com/bonus content. Once again, it's speakerdynamics.com/bonus content. And you'll learn how to find the best lighting in whatever space you're in, and you have to hop on a virtual call. I also wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to let you know what is coming up next in the episode that it will be coming out in a couple weeks. We're going to be focusing on hybrid meetings, and we're talking to an authority on the subject, Dr. Joseph Allen, who is the director of the Center for Meeting Effectiveness. He is the foremost meeting scientist in the world and also happens to be my co-author of a couple of books. But he is going to share with us some of the most recent research on hybrid meetings and also give us some specific tips on how we can make the most of them, which seem to be happening more and more often as people are in and out of the office on vacation. So make sure you tune in for that. And please do subscribe, follow, pass it along to your colleagues, anybody who you think might find value in this podcast. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Until next time.